Okay, Frank.
Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting Tuesday, August 12th, 2008. Tonight at 7 o'clock we'll have citizens input with Marjorie Oakes, jumping ahead of Jack Ottolette. 7:05 we have Town Council for Stadium Financing. 7:20 p.m. Fire Chief McNamara, Police Chief O'Leary, Michael Stanton, George Bell Stadium Advisory, talk about the Country Fest Music Festival. 7:40 Mark Resnick, Town Planner, Spring Valley Homes Land Gift. 8 o'clock Board of Selectmen discussion of Town Council RFPs. 8:30 Board of Selectmen review of executive session minutes. And then we'll have then we'll have action items, old business and new business. Paul, pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Paul. Jack, I'm sorry I got to jump you for...
She brought cookies, I had
Yes, very good.
I really don't care if you want to go with me.
No, Margie, ladies first.
Hey, since when?
Since now.
Wow.
Andy, at least I get you to laugh. Okay. We're planning, HESCO is planning a fundraiser in the month of March. You know what that is, Mark. You drove there that month. The girl that I work with, I have a committee. We formed a committee already, and we're having a meeting at the end of the month. They asked me to come over here because they're all on vacation. Is there, this is our first time in, are there any do's, don'ts? What are we allowed? How do you do a fundraiser? If there's money involved, raffle tickets? We haven't planned on what we're going to do yet.
So you're looking for advice?
Input. Yeah, I'm looking for advice, exactly.
Because you've never done a fundraiser before for this?
I have a lot of ideas, but I'm
Have
not
you-
alone in this, you know.
You're not, you've got a committee?
Yeah, I've got 7 or 8 of us.
And none of those folks have done fundraisers before? Have you?
Well, the leader has. I don't know, you might know her, Mary Mansker of HESCO. She's a telemarketer, one of those puts on things.
Mhm.
But she's away in Europe, so I was over. And the other is in South America. I'm here, so here I am. I just need some steps on, because a lot of times I hear Andy, when he does something for a fundraiser, comes out every now and then. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Call me on the, and I will assist you. I've done a lot of different things, so.
a raffle permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
What if it's a raffle? Do I have to
You have to
report
have
it?
you have to have a permit. So
Oh.
give me a call,
Okay.
2668, and I will help you in your committee.
And what if it's like, I'm going big, like faces, like we really want to be, we'd like to use, Dan's here at the Fidelity Room, I had that idea.
You know what? I think it's committee
I
work.
have no
I
idea.
think it's committee work, and I will be glad to help you come to one of your committee meetings and help. I will.
We have at the end of the month,
Okay.
we just haven't set a date. I'm just here
Let
by
me know.
myself, Andy, you know.
Sure.
Let me know. I'll be glad to help.
What
Mike.
about if we just want a dinner?
We can decide whatever we're going to do at that committee meeting, and it will happen.
So everything could be decided at the committee meeting, what we want, 'cause
That's what we do.
I'm on my own here right now.
I'll help you.
Let's see, you gonna help me too?
No. No, of course I will, Margie. Whatever you need.
No, that's all I want. I
No,
don't know.
Linda's way better than anybody I can think of to
Not,
help you with.
well,
That's right, you've done
I-
a lot of
I've done
fundraising.
a lot of things, yeah. So,
Well, if she needs permits, we'll
Yep.
help with that.
I have to come to Andy if it comes to that, permit.
cookies.
What's cookies got to do with it?
Probably has something to do with it. I'm only kidding.
All right.
I will help you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Tell your committee
I'll get
members.
back to you then. Your number is
2668.
2668-543?
Yes.
That's good enough for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Okay,
you.
now you can go.
Thanks for the cookies, Margie.
I'm going home and watch the rest of it. I gotta
No,
run
you're not.
I saved, I gotta run this. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Margie.
Thanks, Margie.
Watch the Olympics, it'd be better entertainment.
We're not on live tonight anyways, Margie.
Jack,
She's a tough act to follow. Oh, just real quickly, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on Cross Street at the State Hospital Cemetery, we will be unveiling an historic marker. The cemetery is very unique. I mean, everything else about the hospital is changing, but that one place will remain exactly as it is, where time has stood still all these years. A lot of patients did not have family ties, or did not have families who could afford to bring the body home. So the state early on used Rock Hill Cemetery for many, many years, all through the original Massachusetts Hospital and the early years of the Foxborough State Hospital. But come the Depression, and even more families that would have financial difficulties, they created the area on Cross Street. And that's where we will put up the marker to bring some, number one, explain what it is so people understand. There'll be a flagpole put up. Some of the neighbors have agreed to take care of the flag for us, things like that. And it just adds some dignity to the place. The state has made the commitment to have people come over from Rentham State School and keep the lawn, the weeds and grass and everything mowed. So it's just a nice thing to do, to solemnize that. And since we have no idea of religious background of anyone buried there, we will have both a priest and a minister participating. We will. The rabbi could not make it Saturday. I messed up. Saturday's a holy day. He will come at a later date and do a service there for anyone buried of the Jewish faith. So this kind of wraps it all up, similar to what we did on the Papa's graves at Rock Hill. So we certainly encourage board members, any member of the public, to come and join us. And Chairman or anybody, if you'd like to participate, give me a call. We would welcome. Anyone have any questions? But we hope to see some of you there. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Is this the lower cemetery or the upper cemetery?
Both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah, and what we did, there was a legal right of way at the end of the cemetery going up, but it
Going up.
didn't really connect. So
There is a right of way.
we asked Tree and Park to cut a path,
Okay.
so it's much more visible now. So there are two sections of the cemetery. There's a total of 288 graves laid out, and I think 253 of them filled.
It's pretty hard to see the ones up on top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But
Right,
it's a more welcoming area now with the pathway cut.
Okay, there's one body that's buried at the paint shop, the back of the paint shop. I worked there for years. There's a marker there. So I don't know if they're gonna ever move that body or whatever's gonna happen. The guy was so contaminated. The guy was so contaminated, that's where they buried him.
Oh, okay, yep, yep,
So there's a big white marker there.
yep.
I worked there for 41 years, I know
Yeah,
the place.
beautiful. No, I'm glad to hear that. I had heard a reference to another burial, but nobody had any details.
It's at the paint shop,
Yep.
the corner of the paint shop. I know exactly where it is.
Perhaps we would be able to move that and.
I don't know,
There we
because
go.
we've always told to stay away from that place.
Yeah,
The guy died of some terrible thing and
yeah.
whatever.
Probably cave thing.
Yep, thank you very much.
Oh, it's before
More
I-
interesting.
Wow,
Anything
yeah.
else? We're all set?
I started in 61.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. See you then.
See you later.
If you need to
That's great.
find out where he is, give me a call, and I'll let you know where he is. Okay?
This is a curveball.
Yeah.
7:05 PM, Town Council and Stadium Financing. Is Town Council here yet?
He's not going to be here, Mark. He called me this afternoon. You have a package of information in your folders on the stadium refinancing. There's some minor wording changes that are being processed and haven't been finalized between Dick and the attorneys for the stadium. So he asked me to explain that to the board. There's basically two agreements that have to be signed, a joinder mortgage agreement by the board and a consent agreement by the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. But in concept, if you agree with the package there, I want to get the final form of the agreement gets finalized. I'll have it before the board for approval.
Okay. So we're just gonna shelf it then? To the
Yeah,
next meeting?
I won't ask you to take any action on it until you have the final form to sign. And Attorney Turek is here if you have any questions, or if he wants to add anything to what I've said. It's almost finished, but not quite.
John?
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Gelman asked and requested we make some additions to the joinder agreement to specifically reference back to provisions of the lease, Section 8 and other provisions about termination. We've done those changes, sent it to Attorney Gelman. He's approved the changes. We've sent it to the lender. Unfortunately, their counsel is off in Chicago. We're going to hear back from them. I don't anticipate that there are going to be any issues, so we'll have a final. And again, these are purely taking provisions that exist today in the stadium lease and putting them in the joinder agreement. I think out of an abundance of caution, Attorney Gelman wanted to be sure that the two exactly tie word for word, which they now do. And so I expect I'll hear in the next several days. But they're not substantive changes that references the stadium lease, so I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. And Andy just told me that Attorney Gelman isn't going to come tonight. So if you have any other questions, I have to answer them.
John, is this the form that we have in the package? Is this the one with the latest revisions?
I would assume not. If this is the package that was sent out last week, Attorney Gelman, no, it's not, requested some additional.
There was one email to board members, Jim, I don't know if it was read by everybody, either a blue line or red line agreement. That's the final form. I have extra copies here.
That's the final?
If you didn't see the email.
I might have seen it, but would it be faster if I look at that one?
Thank you.
I think I have mine in this packet, actually, yeah. I would.
Okay, John.
That's the substantive change. Just for purposes on page 3, you'll see a fair amount of redlining. These are exact words out of the town lease that exists today with the stadium that Attorney Gelman wanted to have inserted into this joinder agreement. They are exactly the provisions,
Okay.
8A.
I did see that email. I did see that language. Okay. So it doesn't hold the stadium up if we put this over for action at our next meeting?
No.
The deal's done. It's just a matter of signing off on it.
This is what John Hancock has requested, if we could get it done. I mean, I assume if, again, if Attorney Gelman signed off, that if the lender signs off on it, our next response would be just, this form is fine.
Right.
If that's acceptable.
So we'll just table it until
Yes.
the 26th.
Thanks, John.
Great, thank you.
Well, we'll have it scheduled, but I don't see why we can't start the 7:20 appointment. It's not a public hearing, doesn't, so. Okay, gentlemen. Fire Chief McNamara, Chief O'Leary, George Bell, Stadium Advisory. Anybody else concerned? William Casara, Dan Murphy. You guys want to come forward? We can have a brief discussion on Kenny Chesney concept. I'd like to start with you, George, if we could.
With me?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Well, the Stadium Advisory Committee was up at the stadium for the Chesney event, and our observations were, well, first off, significant traffic backups. But in further investigation, it was really due to vigilant, and I say the word vigilant, checking for tickets of patrons before they went into the parking lots. Our observations were there was a significant police presence throughout the, especially the lots. I mean, the inside of the stadium was the easy part. There were no issues with the noise in terms of people who called in complaints throughout the evening. And, it was basically again, like last year, it seemed like to be the place to be for young people to party as much as to go into the stadium. And my observations, I was there, I was in the lots early on, were I felt that the public safety people and the police, state, town, did a stellar job in trying to curtail people from getting into the lots who didn't have tickets. But kids got in the lots and the drinking was strong. A question and an observation, what more can be done to try and stop it? And, I guess my recommendations, if you were to ask them, was that continue the manning levels as they have done. They continue the ticket checking in all lots consistently. I know as it got later, it seemed that some of the lots, when they got towards the regular time, and I don't say that the stadium lots kind of backed off a bit in terms of checking. I would recommend that you look at rolling back the opening times to the events, back to within 4 hours of when the events start. And I guess my last comment is, if I were asked, I would question the need for festival-style events that are for crowds that attract young people.
George, I know after last year's event, me and you worked pretty hard on trying to figure out what the situation was last year. And we got together with the public safety people, yourself, and I think what we asked for was a larger police presence, and what was the number of police total? Was it close to 400 this year?
It would have been close between the staff that our agency put out and the state police increment.
So I think, in my opinion, a lot of the numbers that we saw for arrests were meant to be, that's what we wanted.
Absolutely.
We wanted to see more police presence enforcement. I think we would have had the same numbers last year if we had been prepared, which we all admitted we never thought was going to happen, the size of that chaos that took place. So this year, when I look at this report, I say, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. So, saying that, I'll move. Does anybody have any questions for George before we move on to somebody else?
George, you would recommend the discontinuation of festival seating?
No, I would recommend that you look seriously at the types of bands that would, festival concerts that are like an 8, 9, 10-hour event, based on the fact that when
Okay, the length.
the length, the festival length.
I see. It wasn't to have anything to do with the ticketing and the seating.
Absolutely not.
That
It's just that it's the time involved,
I follow you.
because I think what happened is a lot of the people don't come in until within the top 3 performers,
Okay.
which is 8, 9 o'clock at night versus 3:30 in the afternoon, which is when the first starts.
So is it all the parking lots, whether or not they're related to the stadium or not, that are subject to the police checking to make sure the folks have their tickets?
Everybody,
Okay, so, all right.
from what I understood, and I know observations were that the state police seem more focused on the stadium lots based on, and again, did a great job. As I said, that from my perspective, that was the reason why the traffic was what it was. They were vigilant. And the same thing in the off-site lots, I think more using town police, but there were, I was told that if a lot opened prior to the scheduled lot opening time, they had a town police officer on duty to check their tickets.
Paul? Any questions?
No, nothing, George.
Linda?
So the officers were checking the tickets, or the stadium folks were checking the
The
tickets?
officers, the state police and the town police. And they were, and again, I wasn't everywhere, but when I was out there, they checked, and it wasn't just to see a ticket for a car. If they saw 4 people in the car, they said, I want to see 4 tickets. I mean, it was, that's why I question what else, what heightened level we can go to from what we saw.
Edward?
As you indicated, Mr. Sullivan, the event certainly wasn't out of control. We had deliberate action by the members of my staff and the troopers assigned to the detail to reduce violence in the parking lots from what we had seen at the previous event. It came about as a strategy of 3 different components that we implemented. The first was to prevent unticketed cars from obtaining, to the best possible way, access to the parking lots so they could tailgate all day with no intention of going to the show. And anecdotally, I know that over 400 cars were turned away from various lots along Route 1. And because of the cooperation from the Route 1 businessmen's group, they all agreed to participate, that if they were going to open at an earlier time, they would have officers there. If they opened at the regular time, even their people would make sure, to the best extent possible, that the unticketed would not have access. In fact, Deputy Chief Chandler had a deployment of officers from North Street down through the Outlaw Barbecue, actually going through the lots and on footbeats to supplement officers that were at the lots. The second issue, and I just mentioned, that was the high visibility of all the police officers, whether it was the additional bicycle officers, officers on motorcycles, the prison buses, the extra vans, to be highly visible in the parking lots, and more importantly, take concentrated action on the underage drinking issue. Verifying identification when they saw drinking take place, taking people into custody. Another aspect, although not part of the original strategy, but came about through discussions with both lot operators as well as with the state police, they actually had pedestrian blocks, so to speak, when people were walking up the street with coolers and 30 packs, verifying identification and not letting beer be transported from one lot to another lot where the big party was maybe taking place. And all of those factors together, I think, led to a more successful event, although the notoriety of having 176 people taken into custody makes it appeared that it wasn't a thought-out process, but we had prepared for that in terms of the operational guideline. I felt that both manpower and deployment needs were met for this event. Will we perhaps change some of the various components within the overall plan? Of course, because we're always trying to evaluate what we do and perhaps come up with better ideas on how to do it. But the feedback, even from my key staff, was that we had the resources, and the cultural thing that Chief O'Neill was seen talking about Monday with the underage drinking and seeing our facility as well as Comcast as party zones is something that we're working with both the stadium, the Comcast management, as well as the Mansfield Police to come up with a strategy to reduce that.
James, any questions?
I'll hold for now.
Paul?
I think, George, you suggested maybe that we could roll back the time when the parking lots opened. Is that what you had suggested?
Well,
Yeah, I just
think-
wanted your opinion
yeah.
on that, whether that's necessary.
Well,
Well, Chief.
that would be an ideal scenario,
Mhm.
if that possibly could be done. We've had a migration on lot openings that's continuing to grow. And I'll make the comment about football. I used to be able to go to the 9 o'clock mass for a 1 o'clock game because the lots wouldn't open till 10. And now we have a heavy stream of traffic parked on both sides of Route 1 waiting for the 9 o'clock lot openings. And that's a cultural issue. I mean, the stadium made it very clear in emails to all the customers that, lot openings were supposed to be at 1 and 1:30. But again, people don't want to believe that. So that's something that maybe for next year's events we could work at. But given the volume of traffic that we get that early, I don't know whether we can be that successful. But again, it's an option.
So Chief, you're obviously compared to last year, it's probably not hard to improve, but you're happy with the doing significant improvement in the running of this year's event on all sides?
I believe there was, and although the numbers perhaps give a different impression, that was a result of deliberate planning on our part. And although we had challenges, for example, one of the prisoner buses that we intended to have had a mechanical breakdown that we didn't get. So we had to shift resources to deal with those particular issues, and but you adapt to the situation that you face.
It sounds to me like any of the logistical problems that we had last year, or planning issues, were addressed. And now what remains is, as a lot of people have said, there's this kind of cultural phenomenon where we have to realize, different ways maybe, and Dan, we've talked about this, and how you communicate to the segment of population that's coming to these concerts, that, maybe a press release in the paper isn't the best way, because, maybe the people that are coming to this concert aren't picking up the Globe, first edition, and reading what's going on at the stadium. Maybe there's different communication mediums that we go through, whether it's through, the artist fan sites or through social networking websites and things like that, but to get the word out there, look, we had 100 and some odd arrests this year, and each event compounds on the previous one, so that they do get the message that, you're not going to be able to bring alcohol from parking lot to parking lot, and we're checking IDs if you're seen drinking in the parking lot. So I think, I'm certainly happy to hear the reports from you, Chief, and Chief, and the State Advisory that things are better. There's obviously work that needs to be done, but I think each year, if we do go through this from season to season, the word will get out to the people coming down on the concerts that we're handling it a different way.
Just as an example, I have, if you could start as something the town manager, just an example of some of the pre-planning and the strategy, as well as a copy of the actual operations guide that was followed for the event, to keep staff involved so that they would be more aware of, the operation that was planned. And again, it's for your review, just to see the depth that we spent in terms of trying to come up with an operational plan that would hopefully be more successful than the previous year.
Chief, what's the range of penalties for people who got arrested?
It varies according to the charge, sir. Some of the minors in possession, there's a monetary fine of $100, I believe. Some of the more serious ones, because we did have, I believe, a domestic violence case, and those people faced jail sentences, as well as some of the assault and batteries that took place. The crowd was just over, I think the final count through the gates, about 54,600. And again, the aging of the crowd has changed in terms of the demographics. The traditional country western fan that might have been more mature has dropped significantly. And the act, the Kenny Chesney Act, I think draws more a much younger crowd, i.e. late teenager, early 20 crowd.
Chief, you went out and visited another venue that had the concert. Was it in respect to this?
Yes, it was. Ms. Walsh, we had Deputy Chief Chandler,
Right.
and one of my sergeants actually went down to view the Philadelphia show prior to this event, so that they'd have a better understanding of the concert crowd that we could anticipate. And they said very much the same thing that we had. The major parking lot, which is about 1/10 of the number of cars we park, about 2,200, 2,300 cars, they had people coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning into their lots, and the drinking was very similar. And they have more rapid transit options and private parking lots around their stadium. And they actually, in May, took a look at the Baltimore Stadium a week after they had done this similar show at the Ravens Stadium. And again, more people don't tailgate because you don't have the option about the large parking lots surrounding the facility due to rapid transit availability.
Well, are you going to hear from Chief McNamara?
Oh, I was going to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I just have some general questions at the end.
Okay. Sure.
Sure. I agree with Chief O'Leary regarding the concert. It did not result in such a negative impact as last year. Fire and EMS responded to 477 incidents with 35 transports, as opposed to last year where we had 52 transports, and many of those had 2 and 3 people in the ambulance. So a significant decrease, and we were obviously very happy with how that was conducted. The police presence and the work they did certainly helps us on the other end.
Any questions? Oh. Mr. Casbera, anything to add?
Basically, our department looked at 3 areas of concern out there during the concerts, all concerts. One was the exceeding or not exceeding the occupancy load on the field, which was 10,100, which they were under that. There was we never had an issue on the field. Aisle services were maintained by stadium personnel. The one concern that we had was, with all the construction going up on the site at Patriot Place, was how that was being managed during the concert, and people coming from the parking lots through the construction sites or around them into the stadium. I can tell you, though, that the team ops from the stadium had that secured. I know that because they wouldn't let me in, so that we didn't have any incidents with construction. And then the other thing that we monitor is sound, and we work with between the stadium and the Stadium Advisory Committee, but we received no complaints on sound during that concert, so that was good. That was good.
Dan, you got something to add?
I'd be repeating a lot of what the chiefs mentioned. We had a plan in place with all public safety agencies. We pushed the message hard about the parking lot opening times via radio stations, the overhead message boards, emails. We implemented the no alcohol in between lot policy, gate opening time for the venue, traffic policies about keeping the traffic onto Route 1 as opposed to the side streets in Foxborough and in Walpole. The no ticket, no entry policy, which we implemented after the show last year for the Buffett show, and the low tolerance for inappropriate behavior. And as the chief mentioned, we knew and welcomed the high number of arrests because we had the high number of public safety officers there. I think we turned away over 400 cars with people who did not have tickets to the event. Great cooperation between state and local police and the Route 1 Business Association. Everyone was on board with that. This was really the first time we put this plan into full effect. We did it for the Jimmy Buffett show, but it was a different type of crowd. So this was, I think that we sent a pretty clear message to the fans. I think collectively we were able to change the behavior from 2007 to 2008. I would suggest the chief's decision, but I would suggest we continue with this policy for all concerts going forward, and continue to work with, as we've had one meeting now with the folks at the Comcast Center and the police chief in Mansfield, and look towards not only concerts, NFL games, and look to how we can change this cultural issue.
I know we discussed many things during that whole day, but the first thing we brought up was the early arrivals. Now, exactly, was it 10 or 10:30 some of the parking lots started opening up because of the traffic?
It was about 10 o'clock.
So, I mean, that's 3 hours prior due to safety for the highways, correct? They were just gridlocked. And all the things, what can we do to stop that? It seems to be the biggest thing. And the only thing I can come up with was a fine. That if you're in that situation where You come early, you're told not to. If it's $40 to park, you make it $100. That way you can increase the police presence even more so by longer hours, because now you get 3 hours more of details. When people are supposed to be in prep, now they're right into duty. So now you get another $30 towards maybe possibly adding fire and police, the stadium personnel in earlier, and the other $30 maybe goes to the town. We don't know. Me and Dan discussed that briefly. We both concur that maybe that's not a bad way to go at it, because if they're going to continue to come early for these concerts, the Buffett was a big problem with that. Kenny Chesney's been a big problem with that twice. So maybe, like my father always said, hit him in the wallet. So maybe we go that route.
Chief and I did talk about that after we spoke about it. Like our plan, the lots that did open at 10, not all the lots opened at 10. In our case, we just had our one lot open at 10 o'clock, and very heavy police presence there, checking the tickets. And our thought was that would corral the early arriving people as opposed to dispersing throughout all of our lots. And I know that the chief had police officers at the offsite lots that chose to open earlier as well. But corralling the early arriving fans was a good idea.
One of the most disturbing factors that I heard last year was that the public safety personnel themselves felt that there was a danger to them. And is it fair to say that there was an absence of that this year, that your men and women did not have to fear for their own safety?
Well, whenever you're dealing with
Well,
all right, a general disclaimer that sometimes dealing with people that have had too much to drink could be dangerous. However, we had the resources in place for prompt reaction should an officer start to observe something. First with bicycle teams that could get through the parking lots, backed up by wagons. That we had extra wagons that we did not have at the previous show, so we could identify the troublemakers, take them out of play, which reduces crowd reaction. If you take care of the troublemakers quickly and effectively, it reduces the agitation on the part of the crowd, and we were successful in doing that. And the officers, again, from the feedback I received, didn't feel the tension in the crowd because of the high visibility early on, when, prior to them reaching levels of incomprehension. I think the visibility early on in the event, to see the officers walking the lots, bicycles, wagons, the prisoner buses parked ready to load them in. I think maybe that brought some somewhat clear-headed thinking, and I think there was less perception on the part of the officers that there wouldn't be help available.
That's the point that I was hoping that you'd make, Chief. Well, the way I see it is there was sufficient backup available to make the officers feel secure, regardless of whether there's an inherent danger to what you do. And I would think that if the public safety personnel feel there's sufficient backup, that in and of itself helps us protect the public at large who aren't engaging in incorrect behavior. Of those arrested, did we keep track or detained of whether they were all ticketed, whether some were unticketed? Is there a correlation this year between those that shouldn't have come and those that were arrested?
No, because the only way we would find tickets necessarily on arrested people would be the ones that were actually gained access to the stadium. And we were taking a look, and unfortunately I should have brought it. Mark Briggs from the Patriot Organization had done an analysis of the ages and sex breakdown of the people that ended up as guests by both the state police and our agency, and it trended as we thought it would. It was primarily young men under 25 that were the primary group arrested, and a disturbing trend of young women that were juvenile females that ended up in custody, that had come and were taken into custody in the parking lots that had been drinking. The youngest was 14, and it went up to under the age of adult, which was 16. We had quite a few females in that category, and they had no tickets because when they were processed, they had none in their property.
And I think you did address this, but one of the problems that was identified last year was the inability of safety personnel to navigate the aisles and the lanes in the parking lots. That problem sounds like it was successfully solved this year. There was access?
It was better.
Better, okay.
We're making progress, and as we move forward in the football season, I've been working with Mark Briggs about some strategies that the NFL league-wide is trying to put into place, and us in particular, because of the large lots that we have to deal with that issue.
So that's a work in progress.
Correct.
The, Dan, I think you touched on the point, and I tend to agree with you. I wasn't there and didn't observe it, but the detention numbers seem to reflect the increased police presence. That last year's behavior was significantly worse. The arrests were comparable in numbers, but many more should have, could have, would have been arrested last year had there been enough staff. And the last thing, and I noted this in the news, that there was a near riot in Mansfield with a much smaller crowd, with over 100 people arrested, and this was a 54,000 person crowd. So I mean, there is a phenomena occurring all around us. The responsibility is not solely on your staff. Some of the responsibility is on the parents who are sending juveniles to these events. It's on us as a society to curb the use and abuse of drugs and alcohol, whether it's behind the IGO school or at Gillette Stadium, and send the message that drugs and alcohol abuse are not wanted in Foxborough in any forum. And your organization, by running these events, and public safety can continue to send that message. The only other matter had to do with unticketed persons, and is it fair to say that those numbers were also significantly reduced, though still somewhat high as compared to last year?
I think by screening cars and them not being able to find another home on Route 1 was an important aspect of the overall plan. That doesn't mean we got everyone, and I don't want to lead anyone to believe that we were able to successfully screen out every unticketed person from gaining access to a lot at any time. That did happen, but I think the base numbers of unticketed was prevented significantly.
Well, I heard some good feedback. I hope that you would take it into consideration, Dan, if you're planning on the recurrence of this event next year, especially George's suggestion that maybe we need to really be very careful about the length of the show. I would expect that the level of entertainer that you bring to the stadium is someone that wants to perform towards the evening. I don't know if it solves the early arrival problem, but it's certainly something that we need to consider.
Paul? Paul?
Yeah, just a quick question, Chief. How many people were PC that night? Do we have numbers? Protective custody?
60 were protective custodies for us, and 40 were criminal charges.
Just, and without getting into too much strategy, I'm just kind of intrigued. How are those people identified? Do we have special teams that go through the parking lot? Are they plainclothes officers?
We had a combination of some plainclothes officers that were working a lot for intelligence purposes, and we also had uniform teams from both my agency and the state police going up and making contact with people once they were in the facility.
Thank you.
Linda?
No, I think it's all a work in progress, and we're not alone, obviously. Mansfield's going through the same thing, and obviously Philly and everybody else. And I'm glad that everybody's working together on it. I think it's a good sign that we've even asked our neighbors in Mansfield to join in, and when you have more people at the table talking about the events, that solutions happen that way. So I'm glad to see you guys are all working together. It's great.
Chief, what were some of the responses you got from the parents when you called the child's in protective custody, 14 years old, drinking?
Actually, I didn't even hear any stories. I would have said they'd be shocked and appalled. However, I can, and this doesn't go to this show, it was the next show. We contacted the parents of a juvenile, and they were actually at the show, and they had let their son go off with his friends, but they decided to catch the show before they picked him up.
Wow.
Boy. I was going to say, does anybody in the crowd have anything to say? See Mrs. Kaminsky out there first.
Can you use the microphone?
I just wanted to say,
Okay, new rules, you have to use the microphone.
I'll try not to talk much. I just wanted to thank the Foxborough Police Department. I think they did a wonderful job. And as a citizen, I was appalled reading the article in the Sun Chronicle that it was kind of an intimidation that for some reason this was a surprise or it wasn't well planned or we had too many arrests. And I think the police did exactly what needed to be done as a result of what happened last year, and I see some real improvement. The other thing that concerned me about that article, it's saying that as if we shouldn't, you as Board of Selectmen shouldn't license this. And as a taxpayer, I just want to say that I would hate to see this venue not happen again. It is significant revenue for this town. This town is badly in need of this kind of money. And I think we have to work harder and smarter, as the police department and other agencies are doing, to make it successful. I will tell you something else. As a parent with experience with underage drinking, and I will only give you revealed details of the 21-year-old, and as I asked him, why was it so different this year? How could you still have had this issue? He said, Mom, he showed me the commercials on VH1. This event it's a drinking event. Mom, people aren't coming for the concert, they're coming for the party. I say, if they want to have this concert, let it come, but knowing that it's nationally marketed as a party and a drinking event. And if you look seriously at what happened at Comcast, the OTR, it's marketed, it really is a drinking, it's like a drinking venue. So you can have the best law enforcement possible, and you're still going to have people who are going to not follow the orders, but you will always get underage drinking. And now if I may switch hats, as a member of the school committee and the Board of Selectmen, we've worked to try to attack this problem over the last 2 years. And we're having some inroads. Let's not call it a cultural phenomenon, let's call it what it is. It's underage drinking. And I think we should use a business model to solve this societal problem. So I say let the stadium continue doing what they're doing. Chief's gotten very good at finding out what are the loopholes, because the issue is the kids who come to drink. And that's what we have to change. We shouldn't penalize the town from a tax revenue because kids are drinking. I will go back to Comcast when it was the Tweeter Center. I had a 16-year-old, and I waited in fear of getting the call from the Mansfield police. And there were a year or two when we had that situation. Those young men and women learned very early on not to do it because there were consequences, just as they would never dare do it now for a Patriots game. So what is it that would make them toe the line for certain events but not other concerts? Again, I would say to you, if you market it as and I'm not saying the stadium didn't do this, but if it's marketed or the word gets out that it's a party to the kids, then we get what we expect. The Tweeter Center, Comcast, you are disinvited. The Patriots will sometimes do that. I think you have the willpower with this committee and with the Board of Selectmen and with the other agencies in town to figure out how do we reach those kids? How do we reach those parents? We've had some luck. The selectmen sponsored a parent training. Let's keep working on that. Let's call it what it is. It's the underage drinking. Let's continue to support law enforcement because I think they did a great job. Let's continue to support the stadium because I want to see them leverage a business problem against this societal issue. Didn't attend this year. I had family members that did, said it went much better. None of my children did board the bus. So that was a good, they certainly know when there are serious consequences how to behave. But I did watch the year before, and I was intrigued. And this town voted 12 liquor licenses. If we don't think that they're capable of being able to handle it, then we should not have done that. And I've seen firsthand that I think the stadium is very capable. Let's turn it around. Let's make it. If this event is profitable for the town and for the stadium, let's have it again. But maybe they could put some of their money towards having non-alcohol events so that the kids aren't out in the parking lot. If we put our heads together, there's an awful lot that can get done. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bodie?
Robert Bodie, Carmine Avenue. Just a question for the chief and maybe Mr. Murphy. If the parking lots, the cars are lined up on Route 1 prior to the parking lots opening, if the state police were out there not allowing that to happen, I think they would eventually get the word. If you made them keep on moving until the parking lots are open, then let them in. But just keep them moving down the road, and I think they would eventually get the word and realize not to come out there early prior to the opening of the parking lots and tying up Route 1.
I believe, Bob, that's what we've done in the past, and they just end up hanging out at Shaw's Plaza, the old Bradley's Plaza, Stop and Shop, neighborhoods and everything else, and that puts more, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, that puts more of a, not a burden, but a danger on the society.
Well, that's one of the issues that we've had, and the state police and my staff have made a concerted effort to try and keep the traffic moving as best as possible. But I would much rather them on the Route 1 corridor waiting than at Stop and Shop, businesses and neighborhoods surrounding the area. So at least we know that, we'd have police presence there. And that's sort of the way that we've taken a look at that. But the troopers are out there, they are trying to move them as much as they possibly can, and then when they're not moving them, at least they're lining them up so they don't impede the general traffic flow until such a point that it does become a safety hazard.
Good. Anybody else? I think it's been a great combined effort between the stadium and the town over the last year, and I think it's going to move forward even better. I think it's all a learning process. We're dealing with electronic devices, with emails, text messages. Everybody's one step ahead, and I think the improvement of last year is phenomenal, and I'm very happy with the effort that's been put forward. So, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks. Dan, I did want to say, a little birdie told me that you gave 500 tickets to the Pop Warner in Foxborough for last Thursday night's game. I want to publicly thank you. I think that's a wonderful thing for the little ones starting off to see the big boys in action. So
Great, yeah.
that was great. Thank you.
A lot of the team, parents, and cheerleaders came up too, so it was nice.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing. I noticed on your action list, you have an early opening request by several restaurants. And I just want to reiterate that if there is early opening, we want to make sure that's in conjunction with food service at the new restaurants that are opening, because we certainly don't want them just to become a bar stop and not having anything to eat. So if you could continue that, I'd appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, a little past to Mark Resnick, Town Planner, Spring Valley Homes, land gift. Mark, would you come forward, please? Mark, how are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Good.
And gals.
Thanks, Mike.
There's no dam on it, right?
Mark's going to explain the land gift to the board. Just a few comments. Mark and I had discussed this before I went on vacation. I expressed my concerns to Mark about taking property off the tax rolls. I'm not suggesting we amend zoning bylaws which allow this type of development, open space development, creating this and giving the community land for conservation, but incrementally it's going to have a long-term impact in the community about our ability to raise taxes, and that was my only concern.
Basically, the developer uses half-acre lots and he puts one compound in the middle that becomes part of the full acre to make it an R40 zone. Is that what I'm supposed to understand?
Yeah, essentially this is an open space residential development. That's what it's called in your zoning bylaw, or cluster development is the common term. And in this particular instance, the applicant could show that he could build 15 houses, I believe is the number, on the entire piece of land, and he requested to build the same number of houses but on some smaller lots and surrounded by the open space land. There's a highway there. There were issues during the hearings related to flooding from a little brook there that the neighbors were quite concerned about. Conservation, some of this land backs up to other conservation land, so they were pleased about continuity of open space. So for a variety of factors, it made sense for the planning board to approve this project. Having the open space land, one can argue, also, although the lots are smaller and the land area may be slightly less value, by having the open space land and having the buffer to the highway and protecting the value of the neighboring homes, they're actually increasing or at least maintaining a similar value to the homes that were built than homes on slightly, bigger lots. And in this market, the home size probably wouldn't have been any different. So that's the reason why the planning board, or the primary reasons why the planning board voted to approve the special permit for the cluster development. And they do this on occasion, I'd say about half of, or a third of the subdivisions that we see, because some of the smaller ones don't match this at all, but about a third of them we see that are like this. There's a particular reason that it makes sense to have a cluster development approved.
Randy, you have anything to add?
Sure. I have no specific issue with the matter that's before you directly, but it's sort of the tip of the iceberg for what I consider to be the financial Achilles heel for the town. In my analysis, the primary reason for the financial difficulties the town of Foxborough continues to have, has had, and will continue to have is the disproportionately significant amount of tax-exempt property as a percentage of the total property value in the town. We have the most disproportionate amount of tax-exempt property in the 16 surrounding communities, and as a matter of fact, in the entire Globe South region. In fact, I have the statistics, if you'd like me to distribute them, the graphics, so they're pretty easy to see. The first sheet, how many I have there? The first sheet is a comparison to the 15 surrounding communities to Foxborough, and it shows that we are clearly leading the leagues, as it were, with our percentage of tax-exempt value as a percent of the total property values. And then the second sheet shows where we stand in relation to all of the towns in the entire Globe South region, as reported on a regular basis by the Boston Globe. There's 54 towns in that sample, and we lead the leagues again at 17% of total value in the town. 70% of our property in this town is tax exempt. The average is either 8% across the 54 towns, or 7% across the surrounding towns. So we have a significant amount of this. Again, this particular matter in front of you here is just one small component, obviously supported by the the zoning bylaws, and it's allowed by special permit. But it is this constant taking by the town of the tax exempt properties, combined with the 1,000+ acres of the state forest, and all of the other green space that the town has accumulated in addition to that will continue to keep the town financially challenged. So I just wanted to provide a context. I think it provides a context with the FHA matter as well that you'll have to reconsider again, because that technically is a tax-exempt property too. So it's something to be aware of, that this is the type of thing that just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and it's built to the point right now where it's at an extraordinary level for this town.
Well, I guess I won't donate any land to the town. I know we talked about this number before. It's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, we're presenting this information for the board to look at and digest and consider. We're not proposing you vote against this particular, these particular processes, but we want you to be cautious and consider this in the future for other requests that come before the board.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Mark, when the applicant came in for the approval, the special permit, what the cluster development was approved, didn't that already require that the land that wasn't being developed be left in an open state, whether the town accepted it or not?
Yes.
So when the developer came in, was there an expectation on that company's part that after they developed it, they would then take that open space and turn it over to the town?
That's correct.
Or that was, so,
That was-
at
that
the
was-
original discussion, they were led to believe that that was an outcome?
That's correct. It's actually, we confirmed that with the Conservation Commission at that time, because that had been an issue when, with the commission, where they changed their mind about accepting a piece when I first arrived here. So we ensured that we had, and we put it in the approval, and so that there was the expectation that this would become a town piece of land.
Okay, I mean, I think that's an important
So that there was
consideration.
no confusion on anybody's part what the intent was.
If it weren't, if you were simply leaving that on the tax rolls, the tradition, I think, would be that those houses in that cluster would then share some common ownership in the piece. It would be separately taxed. It wouldn't be taxed at a buildable value, but it might be significant, maybe $1,000 or a $2,000 tax bill attaching to the land. And Randy, I'm hearing what your concern is, long-term, if we continue to take these larger pieces at $1,100 or $1,500 per tax year, that will be, over time, it'll add up to a significant amount of money.
It already has.
Okay. Well, if the developer entered into this cluster and made his application expecting and understanding that the town would be amenable to accepting the land, that's a primary consideration. And I think that as a board, we might be interested in a policy that would prevent this occurrence as a regular thing. Maybe it has to be the exceptional piece of land that is truly something that you have protected wildlife or a compelling public reason to ensure that the public have the control of that particular piece of property for true conservation.
And that is something that the planning board generally does discuss and consider in reviewing the plans of this type, so.
Randy, does this percentage reflect the state school property, the 17%? Would that come down after that's fully taxed?
The remaining components of it that are town-owned, it does. It doesn't reflect the parts that have already been acquired by the developers.
And were we receiving anything for that property as far as town taxation goes in the past?
Taxation, no.
So, but now we will receive quite a bit.
Yep, we have been, but it's even with that, as you can see, because these statistics, comparative statistics, are as recent as fiscal 2007.
Right.
Even with that, we are head and shoulders. We are, more than 100% above the average across the entire southeastern region.
I just didn't know if that number would come off the 17%. I never asked you that question.
That's already been factored out because that transaction took place
Right.
before these statistics were
Well, I
compiled.
guess the number's not coming down then, is it? Not anytime soon.
Mark, is there access, public access onto this property?
Yes, there is.
Any other questions, Paul?
No.
Paul? Linda? Okay. No other questions?
Thanks, Mark.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the acquisition of certain parcels of undeveloped and unimproved real estate located in Foxborough, shown as open space parcel A and open space parcel B on plan entitled Autumn Valley Estates, Open Space Residential Development Definitive Subdivision Plan of Land in Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, Mark, for letting us know that this is an issue that